I got a bing. Recording is good.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the cert-manager dev bi-weekly meeting on the 13th of July 2023. We're joined today by the Venafi team, Peter, Ashley, Tim, David and me, and by Trilok from Red Hat, and is there someone else? Vinny, welcome to you both. And we look forward to hearing your remarks on the points in the agenda. So I can see that the agenda items include a section by Peter on CA issuer and leaf certificate CA rotation. And then we're going to discuss conformance tests, and Tim is going to lead that discussion. So let's start with Peter. Over to you.
Cool, thank you. I don't have much to present, but there are some links there to a number of Slack conversations that I'm aware of. There's probably a lot more on this topic, and there is an issue there which also does link to some more issues, I think, if you scroll down for it. But let me just summarize what I think the user issue is that is being experienced. So when someone uses cert-manager with CA issuers, eventually that CA rotates and there is a new CA certificate. The issue is that all the certs that are subsequently issued from that CA, the CA that they have is the old one and not the new one. And what people seem to expect or think should happen is that if the CA rotates, that all certificates issued by the CA should also rotate. And this is quite a long-standing issue. So what I wanted to do was try and work out what the right path forward here is, because this obviously hooks into Trust Manager. And I know I've had conversations with some of you previously that CA that's sent back is not necessarily always there. And it's an anti-pattern to trust the CA that is sent with the certificate that you issued. So it might just be that the outcome of this is at least some sort of like best practice tutorial or guide, at least on if you are using a CA issuer and what you need to manage rotation. You know, this is an example of how you can do that, even if it does include some manual steps of, you know, copying CAs to a bundle resource and doing that. I'd quite like to do that because I think that would maybe help, or at least help discover some of the issues around it, and that might inform a way forward or a new product feature idea. You know, the one thing I'd thought about off the top of my head was that possibly if you had a CA issuer, that it would keep a record of the last CA in the status of it somehow. So at least you had the old one and the new one. Don't know how you'll expose it, but that might get you some way to kind of being able to pull that CA out. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get some opinions from people who are well versed in the subject, much more than I am, about what we should and shouldn't do. Or if anyone had a really good idea of how to solve this problem completely, then let me know.
I think there's a few bits that need to be considered about this, right? There's the making CA certs available for trust purposes, which is almost different. Like I may want to do that for any given certificate that gets issued. Potentially, I may want to trust it. It may or may not be a good idea, but there's reasons that people would want to have that list of certificates. And there is the sort of updating all issued certificates when the issuer itself changes, which is most obviously visible with the CA issuer. Interestingly, with the self-signed issuer, that's basically always an end of the world situation when one of those rotates, because there's no other way to trust it. So, there's sort of two separate things there. The first bit, the trusting stuff, kind of links to a trust manager issue, which I've been trying to keep my eye on, and I believe this person, James, has also commented on the issue you've linked, Peter. Like, this ends up, the trust manager thing I just linked he ends up sort of suggesting, what about if we have some record of all the certs that are issued for a given certificate resource? And that kind of enables the trust thing, because you can use that separate, like a separate config map where every certificate gets written. Like, if you can trust that, that helps. This is the person, yeah, who created the trust manager issue. But to summarize everything I've been saying, I think this is something that we would need to sit down and plan out to do correctly. And there's a lot of little corner cases you can put yourself on here. And the self-signed issuer, as it often is a special case that can hurt people especially badly, is especially sharp. Tim?
I was kind of surprised by this trust manager issue, because here we're saying that we should allow the certificate request as a source. Is that correct, or is it the certificate?
Yeah, that issue, to be clear, sorry, that issue, I don't think we should have the certificate request as a source. The discussion evolves, like, there's too much to read now, but like the discussion evolves into like how to reference that history. He essentially wants to be able to get the history for a given certificate. At the moment, the list of certificate requests is the best thing we have for that, although not ideal because they can be garbage collected and will be on some environments.
Mm-hmm. And what about just specifying a list of secrets, or like these are like, that's the, if there's no secret, it's impossible to use it still, right? Oh, I guess that's only when a certificate is used. We have CSI drive, it's probably different. Oh yeah, it's an easy thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I brought it to see you guys. So yes, Ash, absolutely, I agree. I wasn't aware of this issue, so I'm gonna have a good read of that. I tell you what, I'm gonna try and have a stab at a tutorial, because I think Houssem's here that some of the stuff with the Venafi Firefly side of things might be relevant here in the way that it has like an intermediate and then an intermediate off that, and how it trusts there. And there are probably lots of options here as well, as in you could do it many different ways with different consequences, but at least one tutorial about how to do it, even if it does do manual things, might at least illustrate something that then we can move slightly forward from there.
That would be awesome. It would be incredibly manual to do it safely today in cert-manager, but a tutorial would solve a lot of it, I think.
Tim?
I wonder, would it be bad to assume that the issuer should keep track of what the trusted certificate should be? Like, I feel like cert-manager is not really the correct place, because we also consider the certificate request quite ephemeral. Like, once you created one and you got the response back, you're kind of done and you can remove it safely, honestly. I wonder, like, shouldn't we just look at the issuer that actually issued the certificate and probably has like proper record of this certificate being issued, and ask them, what do you think we should trust as a set of CAs, basically?
In the general case, the only thing we can do is ask the issuer. There's most of the time we can probably make a pretty good guess, but we can never be certain unless the issuer is clear about what we should trust. That goes for Venafi Firefly. That would go for the CA issuer as well. Like, it goes basically everywhere. But what we also can't retroactively force issuers to give us a reasonable trust chain at any point, because they don't currently. Which means that, like, if you're using Trust Manager, it's kind of fine because you manually put that into a secret or a config map and then consume it in your bundle. And that's really the only way to go. And it's likely to remain probably the only reasonable path forwards for most people, because most issuers might not ever report a sensible CA, and some might not have a way of exposing which CA you should trust. Like, yeah.
How do we because the CA cert key seems to be pretty universally supported right now. Is it the case that most of the issuers that we support happen to have a good CA returned in their APIs or whatever? Because I've never seen, although it's discouraged, we don't want to use CA cert, but I've never seen it empty,
It's more that it's always a guess. Like, if the certificate in the ca.crt field is self-signed, there's a reasonable chance that that's the one that you should be trusting. But it's like, whenever cert-manager populates that field, it's always guessing, basically, based on what was returned. It can't be certain.
Yeah, I can see many cases where it would do the wrong thing. Like, I don't know if it would pick the most specific or the least specific if there's a... So I have no idea. It's kind of undefined behavior now. So, yeah.
Yeah. You kind of like, the ideal is, if you had the full chain return, you walk up until you find a self-signed cert, and then that's usually the one that you can rely on. But even then, people might not want to explicitly trust that, whether that's a good idea or not. Trilok, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I wanted to check on one question. What I have is, how do we integrate this solution with the trust anchors that's available in the Kubernetes upstream? Because the solution now is tightly integrated with Trust Manager, right? So there might be people around who may not use Trust Manager as such, but would rather go for upstream's implementation of trust anchor sets, right? So any idea or any work that you guys are aware of around it?
I mean, that's a really good suggestion. If we were to have some sort of history of CA certificates that the cert-manager would write out, a trust anchor would be a good resource to use. And there's certainly appetite to add that as a supported source for Trust Manager as well. Trust Manager will always be able to do a better job than the trust anchor sets will, because it can move more quickly. It's not tied to the Kubernetes release cycle, and it's not an upstream component. So we would like to add it as a source there. But certainly it's something that Cert Manager could rely on. Like, you could have the option for you to write trusted certificates to a config map or a trust anchor set or a secret or whatever. I don't know why you'd use a secret, but it's just a thing that can hold data.
Great. And another option, what I was looking was for the suggestion around that was provided in this comment. Basically, what I'm trying to do is I want to make it kind of agnostic to the different variants of rotating trust bundles, because it's going to be a problem down the line, because it's on the user's choice on what they are going to opt for, right? So a generic integration would be more better, is what I feel. Or maybe just let the CA issuer manage on rotating the intermediate CAs and trigger reissuance, right? Just like how we renew certificates right now. Yeah, I'm just curious what you guys feel about this suggestion that was posted in the comment on Fed 5.1 issue.
I think any implementation of this which would solve the issue of like needing to trigger reissuance for leave certificates when the intermediate is rotated for the issuer would do something like what Oba suggests here, in that there needs to be a new policy added to the trigger controller, and some way for an issuer to mark each leave certificate as needing reissuance. So at least some part of this comment, having read basically the first paragraph of it, would be a part of the solution here. And having it be generic would, of course, be the approach that we want to go for. Like generic across all issuers, that is. Tim?
Just to be clear, like this is a different topic, right? This is something that this is just reissuing the certificate issued by a CA issuer. One of the CAs in the chain is about to expire. Is that this topic? And the other topic was about the CA.crt field.
Yes, right. So one is about the rotation of the CA itself on expiry or on compromise. But if you have leave certificates that are basically generated with the intermediate CAs that has expired, then we would definitely want to renew these leave certificates also, right? So
okay,
and like any solution for the problem of needing to reissue all the leaves will be applicable in the situation that the intermediate needs to be rotated for expiry or exposure reasons as well. Like the solution here would apply generally and be used in all of these cases.
Well, but you could also change the CA issuer so it does issue certificates that have a longer lifespan than its parent. That would be fixed just for the CA. I'm not sure if that's like the ideal thing.
You could do that, and it's no worse than what we currently have, but it's just a ticking time bomb until it blows up. So it may be that we leave the CA issuer as it is, and we add like a PKI issuer that is smarter about this, and we'll do that more cleverly. But like just changing the issued lifetimes of the leaves still leaves it to break when the CA issuer expires. So it's a different problem slightly, but it's still a problem that we need to solve.
Why would it break still if the CA, because I expect the CA will be rotated at the moment.
So currently, my understanding is the CA issuer won't rotate itself. Like so if you had a self-signed issuer, it would change the CA issuer. I don't know if that would then be. I don't think that would then be picked up by the CA issuer to trigger anything in and of itself. Like it's quite broken at the moment, but the CA issuer could be using just a random secret that will never get updated on its own, and the CA issuer obviously can't update itself in that situation.
Yeah, but if you have a self-signed one, and then you point the CA issuer to that, you limit the lifespan of the leave certificate to not be longer than what the lifetime of the CA is. Then there will be an issuance triggered at some point before the expiration of the parent, and at that point the self-signed issuer might have already rotated that CA certificate, so then it would fix things, right? And the alternative that's described in this PR is to re-trigger when we see that one of the certificates in the chain is about to expire. So those are the two options. Is that correct?
If I understand you correctly, I think there'll be elements of both of those solutions in the final thing. Like if my leave certificate has a shorter lifespan than the issuing certificate, then it shouldn't have a longer one because it doesn't make sense. But there's still something we should do about that. Like I think this sort of thing is why sitting down with a designer or a proposed solution that would be helpful, because we probably won't like solve this on a metaphorical whiteboard now, kind of thing.
Houssem, you've had your hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, kind of related to this. Again, yeah, probably big design thing, but if we do get into the issue of triggering reissuance, but at least for leaf certs or something like that, then that might start to, I don't know. I don't know how implementation works, but like, you know, it might make things a bit more dirty if we need to, you know, temporarily trust two roots until that's done. And when it's done, remove the old root. Is that something you would ever put in scope for cert-manager or trust manager to solve? Or you would rather avoid that? Just a suspicion of mine.
I don't speak for everyone, but I suspect that if we tried to do that for the existing CA issuer, it would come out messy and difficult and surprising to people. My instinct would probably be to have a new issuer because that doesn't rely on the self-signed issuer in any way, and that does this more intelligently and will have the multiple routes trusted. That would probably be the way to attack it. Anything that relies on the self-signed issuer is suspect at the moment because it's hard to get that to work right. So I would think the approach would be quite different, but that's just me.
Another approach, what I was looking for is to have a completely different controller altogether for such kind of issues, which can work generically. Not just self-signed CA, but any kind of intermediate CA use cases. If you guys think that there is something viable, I can work on the proposal on having a generic controller which is not tied up with any issuer.
I'm not sure if I fully understood that, but I agree that whatever we do should be generic where possible, and could apply to many different types of issuer. Richard, I think you had your hand up first, I think.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to say anything because I think I agree with you, Ashley, that I can't properly express myself at this meeting. But I was thinking, I think how I would do it right now is I would create a brand new self-signed CA issuer called issuer version 2. And I would create a brand new CA issuer called CA issuer version 2. And I would create maybe brand new certificates, all linked to that version 2 of the issuer. Wait for the secrets and actually have those populate version 2 secrets. Wait for all those to be populated. And then update my deployments to reference those version 2 secrets. And then I'd have all the old secrets still there in case something went wrong, and I would be able to roll back the deployment. And it does sound like an awful lot of work, but maybe some tool that automates that process for you could be useful. And then gets rid of the old CA, self-signed CA, and all the old resources once the process has completed successfully.
I think that could be an approach we could take. Like my only thing on that would be that I don't think we should create self-signed V2. Like any V2 of cert-manager should not include the self-signed issue or anything like it.
Oh, I didn't mean I wasn't meaning like send the version of. I wasn't talking about a new version of cert-manager. I was talking about the name of the issuer resource. So I was thinking about how you could do it with what we've got at the moment, and that's maybe how I would approach it.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
I think my comment was along the similar lines, so that maybe to help help people who would like to input on this, setting some sort of direction that we'd like to take. Would it be fair to say that we want to distribute trust with Trust Manager? However, it's input there, and if we want to do more clever things with when things are rotated, then it would be at least an external issuer, like a different issuer than what we have currently, so that we could do some logic in the issuer maybe, and we might be able to expose, we might be able to, you know, make some assumptions and say this is the CA and this is the historical CA, and expose that somehow for trust manager to be able to use as part of like a combined solution maybe. That's what I from the discussion here, that's how I thought to go away. Yeah, thumbs up sounds good. So Tim.
I was wondering what kind of action points can we take away from this? Maybe we should create maybe a plan of action or a design of some sort and work on that, so that when this problem comes up in the future, we know where to point people to so that they can work on that, and just like some kind of consensus.
Yeah.
All right.
I think there's a few distinct bits of work that we could pick up here and have plans around.
I mean, the tutorial, that
Yeah,
seems absolutely a no-brainer, and I would like to help Peter with that if you want.
Okay. Let's put those things in the document then.
So, shall we move to the next topic? We're at 5:30, well, half past the hour, and if there are no other comments, let's move on. So what are we talking about now? We're going to talk about the conformance tests. Over to you, Tim. Oh, Tim's taking notes. Let's wait for Tim to finish writing that sentence, and then he can introduce this topic.
Just whilst Tim is writing that, Trilok, did that answer your question?
Yes. So I'm just going to think around a generic controller, like I mentioned, which would basically work for any CAs. Yeah, I can add an action item on it here. Cool. Thanks.
Cool. Your input is definitely welcome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. So the next item I would like to talk about are conformance tests for cert-manager issuers. As you might be aware of, we put some time into creating this issuer library, which is basically a library that lets you easily create issuers for cert-manager. It's still being worked on, so it's still API is still changed, let's say, so it might break in the future. So that's a disclaimer indeed. But the idea is we want to make it easy to create issuers, and also make these issuers better, honestly. One thing that was added recently is support for Kubernetes CSRs. So you can now also sign Kubernetes CSRs using an issuer. So you don't just need to always sign cert-manager certificate requests. That's kind of a bit of background, maybe just a bit of marketing here. But the thing I want to talk about is conformance tests. And the thing I was thinking about is, well, once you create these issuers, how do you know that your issuer implementation is actually a good one, that it's like conformant to everything that we expect from you as an issuer creator? And for that, the idea is to create conformance tests, or that would be a great tool for that. I think Rich has already looking at the conformance tests in cert-manager. And the problem with this is that we looked at this, it doesn't seem like these conformance tests are actually conformance tests. More seems like these tests are around detecting or kind of checking what features the issuer supports. For example, here, like there are, in this feature set, there are only some features like ED 200, like that's elliptic curve feature set. Like there are a lot of features, and if you specify, okay, I support these features, and you can test that actually you do support them. It isn't more than that. It's just what these conformance tests do. Rich and I, we kind of talked about this, and we concluded that conformance test is probably not the correct word for these tests, and we should call them feature tests. What we imagine conformance tests to be is what I described in the new issue that I just created in cert-manager. Let me get the link here. Rich, if you can go to the top of the issues. Yes, that one. My internet's super slow. So basically, what I imagine the conformance test to check for is, thanks for like, is the issuers should respect any kind of approval annotation that is made on the certificate request. That's like a basic conformance check that we should do. It should set like the correct annotation, the correct conditions on the certificate request. It should put the certificate chain in the certificate request. It maybe should add the CA or shouldn't add the CA, that kind of stuff. All the things that it is concerned about directly, like how does it interact with our APIs directly. Also, what happens in case like usages are different in the certificate request resource versus in the certificate request blob. Does the issuer set or emit the right events? So you can easily debug the issuer in Kubernetes itself. Also, is the issuer up to date with the latest cert-manager version? Do we have feature set tests for the issuer? That could also be a conformance test. How many active maintainers does the issuer have? Like, is this actively maintained? Is this issuer open source? All these kind of things, I think, are very useful for someone looking for an issue. If we can create a set of tests, a set of rules, basically, for all issuers, then we can also use these rules to kind of rank our issuers on our website and make sure that when people use cert-manager, they use quality issuers, and they are also more inclined to maybe use external issuers. Because right now, I think a lot of people default to the entry issuers because they know that we maintain them, so they must be good. But we also want external issuers to be more popular in the future. And if we can kind of confirm that the quality of those external issuers is also very good, even though they're not maintained by us, that would be a great thing. And we could also add that on the website and kind of advertise that. So that's kind of the whole concept of conformance test and what we would like to achieve with that. And we'd like to kind of see how people think about that.
I think it's a really good idea, but we discussed it yesterday. I don't know whether we'll have time to do it all. What's the minimum thing we could do? I suggest write like the first 2 tests and put them in a conformance library somewhere. And I quite liked your standalone conformance binary idea too.
Yeah, so that could be a thing where we create a binary that you just run and then you share the results with us. And maybe you fill out a form that kind of has these questions. If it's just a form, then it's very easy for us to implement this. We can just create a form. Writing tests is a bit harder for us. But the correctness, that would be great to have that as tests so that we can be certain about those things. Of course, we'll have to create like definite rules, right? So it has to be clear what the rules are. And I think that will also take some time. And maybe we should also think, what if we change the conformance test over time? How will that affect these kind of results on the website? Maybe there is also something around that.
Yeah. So we can write the tests. We could create a short. Would it be worth creating a questionnaire, some sort of form that the maintainers of each of the external issuers could communicate to us with the information that you're asking here about the health of the project, and those that choose to respond and seem to have a healthy project, we could promote in the website. Perhaps that would prompt others to want to get promoted too.
Yeah, and we could maybe make it so that you have to fill out this form like every X amount of time, so that we see who's actively kind of doing this, and so that we also can keep it up to date, these conformance tests, maybe add more questions in the future. And then if some project has like an initial high conformance test score, we can kind of lower that score over time because maybe it isn't being worked on actively anymore.
Yeah, balancing it though, we don't want to create too much bureaucracy, but
that's true. Yeah,
keep it simple and easy for us to maintain.
Yeah, it would be great if it could be fully automated. Like if there was like a GitHub action that you could run and like pushes all the results directly to our website. But that's like 2050 technology, I guess.
Has anyone seen this sort of thing elsewhere? I mean, what about external volume drivers for Kubernetes? How do they, are some of those considered more worthy than others?
Hello.
Oh,
They
Josh.
do a list of something. Do you like
While Josh is looking that up.
oh, I posted in the chat.
have you? Sorry.
No, sorry, yeah. But my point was like they do like a table, but it doesn't really signal the health of the project or its stability or.
It does show the compatible with CSI drive versions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That might be an indication on how recent CSI drive is. One thing we discussed before you joined, Josh, is that we have these conformance tests in cert-manager, but we kind of felt like those are actually more about detecting what features are supported. And that's kind of what this, on first sight, what this website is also doing. But we were thinking more about like something that can be used to generate a score, maybe to kind of rank things, or maybe give like a gold badge versus a bronze badge, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it can be a good thing that an issuer supports issuing CAs, but it can also be not desired, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess there are things like, those kind of GitHub like health score stuff that I don't necessarily think are really, I don't know if they say that much about a project. My question would be, is that when you choose an external issuer, typically that's done because you need to use a particular technology rather than trying to pick the best one, because external issuers, you can't really kind of hot swap them, if you know what I mean. Like, you're normally picking it for a particular use case rather than because one's more maintained than the other, So my question would be, what's the benefit of trying to score them if the score isn't going to make a difference to whether you choose one over the other?
Good point. It's not like there's two KMS issuers to pick. Oh, no, there aren't. There's only one Google Cast issuer. Yeah, I don't know.
It could be an incentive for these developers of these issuers to improve their issuer.
Money is a good incentive.
Yeah, well, maybe we should just pay them to create more issuers, better issuers.
What's the underlying motivator for all of this work?
Well, I would like to make clear that issuers created by the issuer library, for example, are good, and kind of compare that to other issues and see how those compare.
Yeah, I mean,
that could also be an incentive to kind of start using that, maybe because it's an easy way to get a high score.
Gamify it. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Could you get the same result by having a checkbox on the external issuers to say users approved issuer lib? Like the idea of filling in we could add more information in there, like the last time it was tested or maintained or something. I don't know. But that could be a starting point. Not automated, but easy.
But I don't necessarily want to kind of force people into using it. If they have another implementation that's as good, that's fine for me. Like, I don't want to kind of just want to make sure that it's clear that they have to do something to improve the quality if they have to do something. And then issuer library could be a good solution for that.
I'll tell you one thing that did happen. It's just come back to me. I think there was maybe last year, there was a case of an external issuer which had become unmaintained, but someone had forked it. And there was a pull request submitted against our website asking us to point to the up-to-date fork. I suppose that such a health check process would give us early warning of those unmaintained issuers, and maybe we would go and find the most up-to-date fork if one exists sooner. I can't remember which issuer it was, but anyway. Any other comments on this? Or are there any other topics? Josh, you've joined late. Anything you'd like to discuss?
Not from me. No. I'm just sitting here.
Cool.
Anyone else?
I think, yeah. Abhijeet.
Hi, I'm Abhijeet. I'm part of Yahoo, and I'm working on So I'm a maintainer of Athenz, which is a CNCF sandbox project. And what we are looking at is including Athenz as an external issuer for cert-manager. So sorry I joined late, but some of the discussion I just happened to catch the conformance test, which we're talking about the external issuers. So the approach which we are considering is I looked at the CSI driver Spiffy. So Athenz is very much similar to Spire in terms of what it does. So it provides the Service X509 certificates for service identity, and it also does authorization. So it's in a way it's sort of hybrid of, let's say, I would say Spire plus OPA, something like that. And what we are looking at today, we run our sidecar, which is deployed with each and every pod, which provides the certificate to the pod. And what we are looking at to improve that and possibly do a better job of instead of running the sidecar, we would use cert-manager and implement Athenz as an external issuer. From what I looked at, it looks like having a CSI driver Athenz or like a CSI driver of our own would make the most sense, very much modeled after the CSI driver Spiffy. And also while looking at that, I came across this issuer lib, and I was hoping that maybe I can start using it. I read the README, so I'm aware that if it is still sort of under development, but from the looks of it, it looks like it takes care of a lot of boilerplate code, which otherwise I would have to just sort of copy paste from something like sample external issuer. So just wanted to get y'all's opinion on that.
What a fantastic coincidence that you joined. Tim, you must be delighted.
Indeed, yeah. But I want to be clear, big disclaimer, and it's also in the README, like things will break in the future, like your API, Go API will change, so you have to make changes.
Sure.
We get a lot of complaints often in cert-manager when we change stuff, so we kind of want to keep that option open for issuer library still. And there are some things that are planned that will break the API. For example, I think to kind of make it possible to have backwards compatibility with existing issuers, we would like to add also a field to specify what the CA is, so that CA field can be set as certificate request resource. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of a full disclaimer. I'm very happy that you want to use it, and I think based on what you said, I kind of feel like you are correct with your assessment. I wonder still what you want to have specific in your CSI driver. That's maybe not in the CSI, in the Spiffy CSI driver or in the normal CSI driver.
Right. So what I was looking at is, for example, in the Spiffy CSI driver, the approver specifically looks for something very specific, that there is, let's say, only one SAN URI field, and I think a couple of others, which sort of is an sort of opinionated way of looking at the certificate request. And I believe the current certificates which Athenz generates has some additional fields which most likely would not be approved if with the current CSI driver Spiffy design. And I believe the one difference between CSI driver and CSI driver Spiffy is CSI driver Spiffy uses TMPFS and make sure that the key and certificate are never stored in the on the underlying node's disk. Is that right? Like, that is what we are looking for. So I guess that is where the normal CSI driver may not be useful for us. And that is where I thought about going into this, our own CSI driver implementation. If those two things are somehow I understood it incorrectly, or is there any way I can still go ahead and use one of those two, I'll be more than happy to do so.
Yeah, I can speak to that a bit. So they are both doing that. So they are both writing to a tempfs mount.
Okay.
So in both cases, indeed, it's only kind of in that kind of virtual file system in RAM. My question would be that kind of what are your goals here for integrating Athenz with cert-manager, or wanting to use some of the cert-manager code or those kind of things? So the kind of CSI library, which I think you referenced to, which is used to build both the normal CSI driver and CSI spiffy. We talked a bit about approvers here and things like that. These are all kind of fundamentally very part of the cert-manager ecosystem. And the kind of idea there would be that cert-manager, kind of the APIs are kind of like a integration point. So both kind of for the external issuer part for getting stuff signed, but also the kind of consuming part. So that then hooks into secrets or something that understands certificate requests or trust manager or whatever else it is. So I guess my kind of question to you is, if you are looking to create a CSI driver for your project, it might not be the case that the kind of cert-manager libraries would be appropriate for you, because they are, as you say, so opinionated, and the idea is that they kind of plug into the whole ecosystem. However, if you want to plug into the ecosystem, if that's what your kind of goals and motivations are, then certainly looking at a external issuer would be the way to go, I think. And similarly, perhaps an external approver as well, or an approver plugin. That might be another thing that's interesting for you to hook into, because those really are the kind of, as the kind of certificate provider, which you are in this case, that they're the kind of integration points. Does that make sense?
It does. So what is actually so yes, we are gonna have an external issuer. So the main reason we thought about doing so is there is quite a lot of usage of Istio within the company, and right now they are still using Citadel and the self-signed CA with Istio for the control plane components, as opposed to using something like certificates which Athenz can provide. So one main point which we're looking at is, by doing cert-manager integration, we'll be able to take advantage of that and use Athenz certificates even for Istio control plane. And that would have been like very straightforward. If Athenz can be a cert-manager external issuer, Athenz will provide the certificate. Rest of the thing is already taken care by cert-manager project, and that would help. And the second thing is just we are trying to look at in general, the resourcing footprint. If there are n number of pods, then there are n number of Athenz sidecars which are created with those pods taking resources, which also we have a chance to improve by doing cert-manager integration. Instead of running each pod as a sidecar, we can just run the external issuer and run it as a daemon set, and that would improve the resourcing footprint. So those are the main two goals which we're looking at by going this route of having Athenz as an external issuer.
Cool. Makes sense. Nice.
Josh, do you also know, like, the custom CSI driver, is that necessary, or can we maybe adapt the CSI driver spiffy?
It's not clear to me why they need to be adapted just yet. If those projects themselves lack features, then like, I think as a project we should probably implement these features to unblock people, and but there's like, the CSI library was designed to be used right, to make new CSI drivers. That's the whole point. So if that's the right way to go, then yeah, for sure. Cool.
Sure. I mean, I'll be happy to go over the details I know that we're running out of time right now, but why I thought we might have to implement our own driver, and if I'm wrong, and if I could use, let's say, either CSR driver or CSR driver Spefy, less work for me. So
Yeah, absolutely. And it's better to kind of have all the features in fewer projects, right? Because that kind of benefits everyone, right? So yeah, if there's features missing that like make sense in a particular project, then we should definitely add them, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are at the end of the hour, so thanks, Abhijeet, for bringing this to our attention, and come and chat to us in Slack about this.
sure.
And come. Are you in the USA?
Yes, I am. I'm in California.
Oh, right. Okay. So we'll come to our next bi-weekly meeting then. I was going to invite you to our morning stand-up, but that's not going to work for you.
Right.
But yeah, come and chat to us in Slack. Ashley, go on.
I should say I asked Abhijeet to join this. We spoke on Slack already. He's in the Venafi Slack. Hi, nice to see you.
Same here.
Yeah, I can connect with people if needs be as well. Reach out if you want to talk to any of us.
Sure.
I also wanted to say it's nice to see Vinny join again. He joined the last one, and we had a nice chat. There wasn't many people in it. It's just great to see you back.
Do you have any specific questions, Vinny? We just joined to.
This time I was just listening in. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, great to see you back, like I said.
Okay, thanks everyone. Let's call an end to the meeting and see you all at the next one.